Hello and welcome to part 2. Hopefully you've seen part 1. If you haven't, watch that first. That's on here on GPVWC from simnews.tv. I'm still here. I'm Scrutineer. I'm here with Mr. Ben Willis.
Hello.
And Mr. Will Ponissi.
Hello.
We're going to go through now the second half of the grid, including the new teams and making our own predictions for the whole standings at the end of the year. Gulp. So wish us luck, and we're going into that now. So we shall start off. One of those teams we're coming on to is Adonis Engineering. They're now known as Pescara, Adonis Engineering.
Yeah.
My Italian is poor. Maybe I should get Will to do that. But nonetheless, so they've got a new sponsor. Slightly odd that it's a other sim racing team sponsoring them, but you know, money's money. And then because of that, they've got a different lineup. Really, they've got full Italian on us. So when Dutch and Italians make things, is that a good thing? No, we'll find out. But lots of coffee and something else at that team. And then, but they've also got themselves a new engine. So they finally got the engine manufacturer slot that they wanted for about, I think they applied for about 3 seasons, didn't they, Will? So, like I said, the Revington engine with the Bull livery will be exciting to see how that does. And did get customers as well in its first year, which is something that everyone says. So that's good. Menno working his magic on his friends there. But they have brought the drivers they did bring out. We alluded to them being Italian. They brought back Eros Musculi. Now, arguably, I don't think I'd ever. If you'd asked me that a year ago, I don't think we'd have ever seen him in the league again. So fantastic that he has returned. Quality driver. Nearly a title winner. Let's call it that. Returning whilst we also add, a friend of his, Zappala, in which I'm not overly aware of, if I'm completely honest. I haven't done my homework on this one. I can only apologise. But I'm told from sources slightly that we should be looking for this guy as well. Probably not apparently to Musculi's pace completely, but going to be a good solid second driver picking up points from what I'm hearing. So as a lineup, they obviously get along. They obviously work really well together. So it could be exciting. Is it Adonis though? Is a question mark. Not too sure. Bit of a shade of last year maybe, but the team itself really, that lineup and the way they sort of set themselves up and their own engine should be able to propel themselves up the grid from where they can they get back to where they were in 2016? We'll see, but they really should be able to propel themselves up the grid a bit, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a really solid pairing, actually. It's really great to see Eros Musculi come back. Obviously, really strong season for him in 2016. Germano Zappala has, a good track record elsewhere at other leagues as well. So as long as the pairing does well, and as long as they get the engine research right, obviously this is new for Adonis. So, that's going to be quite an important factor to making sure that the car is quick this year. If they can nail that, if the drivers work well together and again can score those points, which we keep saying for every team, it's going to be very hard to score points this year. I think with the quality of talent on the field, but if they can do that, then I really do hope we see Adonis heading back up the table towards where they once were.
I think they're outright title challengers.
Ooh.
They are. It's a bold statement, but we know Eros Musculi, quick he can be, and he's in a team he knows because he's been there before, and the fact that Pescara are throwing the weight behind the team is only a positive for him. I personally don't know Germano Zappala. I haven't followed him, but I hear good things about him. And most importantly, if he's part of the same group that Musculi comes from, that means they're already used to working together. There's a synergy between them, and that can help them in setup making, in getting the best out of the car. I think Menno knows development. He's one of the most knowledgeable managers out there, and so I have no doubt that they will have a good car for somebody like Eros to challenge for wins straight away from Melbourne on. The only potential downfall for this team will be the engine. It's the first time they do it. I'm not claiming that Menno will not get it right. If there's somebody who can get it right the first time, it's probably him. But it's more complex than he actually looks, and it's because of the way the engine development works. It can be very, very difficult to get back lost time if you get it wrong, especially at the beginning of the season. So they may provide a distraction for Menno, and they may provide some problems. We'll only find out. As I said, he's a very skilled manager, and I think he'll get a hang of it right away. I'm sure he's got the drivers that even with a slightly underpowered car would be able to drag it where perhaps it doesn't belong. So I'll be very interested. I'd be very, very surprised if they weren't fighting consistently for top 3 in
I think that's a glowing endorsement of that team, isn't it, from us all, really, though. That's what you call an off-season, I think, by Adonis there. Well done, lads. Somebody else who's had an interesting off-season, should we say, is Madcape, the South African team. Not really set the world alight since they've joined the Super League. They've been there. Their third season this is now for them. Really didn't. It's sort of a tale of two seasons than last year. First half of the year, they will want to forget about completely. But come the last, third of the season, came alive and got themselves off the bottom of the championship and actually overtook a few teams. Great. They've managed to keep that a strong lineup at the end there. So they've brought over people that drove last year. So we had Jerome Quakel and Daniel Brewer. Don't really drive together very much last year. They actually were sort of swapping car. This time driving together, and that knowledge that brings. This is a team that's won titles elsewhere together in that driver lineup, and they're actually bringing over their manager Peter Bell to help manage that team on behalf of Madcape and Xavier there. So they brought in personnel to help in the background as well, which I think was what was massively lacking last year. If those guys can be sort of left to do what we know they can do, this team could jump up hugely up the table, a bit like we were saying with Adonis. These are teams that are coming in the bottom 4 here last year, and we're now talking about them potentially being right out the other end of the table, what does that mean for the guys already up there? It's going to be ridiculously tight this time around. Interestingly, they've gone for the Quasar engine, so they're the only ones to have gone with that. So that's Edge as well. So that's makes them slightly different to most others on the grid, which can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how Edge work with that. Can give them an advantage over the rest of the field potentially, or put them slightly behind. So it's going to be interesting to factor in that. But driver skill alone for these two guys, unquestionable. On whatever sim really, but considering this is back on Rfactor 2 where they have won titles, one to watch for me. This.
Totally agree. And if what you say about the personal change in the background is true as well, then I think that's addressed one of the key issues of the team. This is a really strong driver pairing. If they can, again, get everything right on track, get the car development right, I think this could be a team that's really actually challenging up the front, really. And I think this is a crucial year for Madcape as well. They've had 2 seasons where I think we've expected quite a lot of them, given their experience elsewhere, and they haven't really performed. They've really got to hit the ground running this year, and with the driver lineup and with the personnel changes, I think they really can do that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the common threads that we're finding out in this conversation is the incredible level of the drivers that we're seeing here. It's again, Madcape are coming out with 2 incredible drivers. They need a strong season because they have been struggling. Considering the potentials they have, they've been underperforming, and we all wish them well. They've got the drivers, they've got the organization to get better. But whether there will be enough when everybody else is fielding these great lineups and is going on strengthening the teams, that will remain to be seen. They definitely need for the future to step it up a gear.
I think the only question mark we've had about Mad Cape so far, pre-season, they have missed cars on pre-season tests.
Good point, yeah.
Doesn't really, we've just picked them up and gone, they can look really good. Actually, already potentially slightly mismanaged. So we'll move past that. But it's not end of the world at this stage, but if it's a common thread, could become a problem. It just starts questioning about the management side at the moment, maybe in that transfer stage. So they've missed a few R&D points at the moment. Not being a new team is not going to hurt them too much yet, but at some point will. So another team that we had high hopes for, I suppose, but really will be quite disappointed with their season last year is Zurich. A very quiet season compared to their Super Cup season the year before, where they kept the unchanged team. They had two great drivers. They have kept that team again, so Dino Paolini and Whitby Helpshire. They just didn't get it going last year. There was, the car itself was reasonable enough. There wasn't particularly huge problems with what they did. They just didn't. They weren't dialed in with it, or something didn't quite go right compared to the Super Cup year. I do worry about them slightly. The drivers themselves do have good quality if they like the mod, but it worries me that they couldn't quite get there in 18 rounds last year. So you'd go, well, something needs to change. They kept the same lineup, so hopefully something's changed in the background, because on paper it looks like not a lot's changed. Why would I then expect much different to the year before, particularly as a lot of other teams have picked, on paper, look like they picked up the pace and picked up the mantle and want to move forwards. I question whether Zurich want to. That said, it's more of a sort of little small family team, as it were. These guys know each other really well. So if they're just in it for some fun and see how they do, then that's great as well. They are probably more of a Williams-esque team in that manner. They're not paid for drivers though. That's about the only thing. But yeah, I do worry for Zurich's quite a bit, to be fair, this year.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. The key issue for those two was the car last year and not being able to get a good base setup on which both felt comfortable. With the huge car physics change this year, hopefully that resets some of that. If they like the car physics, then I think we'll see this team make good strides forward. But if they don't like the car physics, then is this going to be another year of dwindling at the back? At which point, we've got to start talking about relegation and things like that. It's a bit of a make or break year, I think, for Zurich. They've really got to step up this year, I think.
It is. I mean, I think one of the issues last year was that compared to the other debutants, they obviously suffered in comparison because the others, Epic, Evolution, had such incredible years.
Yes.
But I agree with Ben. The results speak by themselves, and even though there is potential in these teams, and they've demonstrated in previous seasons in the lower formulas that they can do really well, they will need to step it up and produce better results. Otherwise, the people will start thinking they're really out of the depth in Super League, which is harsh on the team because it's a good outfit.
Yeah, we all wish them well, but slight worries there. Another team I'm worried about is Storm. Now, arguably, a lot of people probably didn't even expect to see them on the grid if you followed last year, but they're here. So welcome back, Storm. They're here for 2019 with two new drivers that we've not heard of before either at all. They've gone full Man City on us and gone with Invictus Ranieri and Riccardo Pellegrini. So, managing teams is going to be awesome. But outside of that, let's hope they can drive as well. I'm quite unsure of them. They're two Brazilian guys. They do, from the results I've seen on paper, they're winning series over in Brazil. So that sounds great. But who are they up against? The guys in Brazil, just a lot of other Brazilian guys. So it's interesting to see how that works over here. I'm not sure how the time difference will work as well with them. That's potentially going to have to be racing at weird hours. I like the fact that they've come back and done something different. They've not picked somebody from a lower series or somebody that's a bit, they've just gone, this is almost right. We've we're going all or nothing with these guys, and I like that. That's a ballsy approach. Nice work, Storm. Let's see how it works out, though. If we're unknown guys to me, I can't massively predict it. The spiral of the team for the last season or two, since the Gagzellas of the world have left them, is a worry, and so you'd expect them potentially be down the bottom again. But who knows, really, with these guys? They could get a 1-2 first round. We don't know.
Exactly. I think, as you say, it's too tough to call this one because we just don't know anything about, the new debutants here at Storm. It's, like Mazurek, this is a crucial year for Storm, and I think, again, if they don't get it right, they are a contender for relegation now to Super League because of this downward spiral they're on since 2016, back when they were towards the top of the midfield, and I think they were almost challenging for wins at points. Hopefully, these two new drivers can stop that, but we just don't know at the moment. I think, again, it's another one of a wait and see kind of thing.
It is a critical situation. They started so well last year, nearly won this, and then it's just gone downhill. Obviously, we are looking at a situation now in which there was a bit of a lack of management. Manuel's been away. Other people have been drafted in to manage the team. We are taking in 2 new drivers for 2019, which is always a risk, especially with people that may be negatively affected by the change of times later in a month. It's a critical situation, and they really need to hope all these changes bring some results. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very difficult situation for them.
Let's wait and see. Exciting stuff. Hello to all the new Brazilian fans we must have. Hi.
Hi.
We're now big in Brazil, guys. Well done.
We made it.
So, the team that did come bottom last year, and the team whose best moment of the season was their car launch, which is worrying, was...
It's brutal.
Am I wrong? Was Red Bull Street Fighter. The Red Bull thing is fantastic. Came all guns blaring, all shouting about it. Fantastic. Why not? Signed Florian Gaia, race winner, team's title winner. Bringing in that sort of element of people, and then coming last really is not what they planned. So we go into 2019. Presumably they will also plan not to come last. So where can they get to? We've got Florian Gaia still there. Great stuff. He's obviously got the potential to really be at the top end. And then they brought David Franchik into a full-time race seat there, replacing Ben Howell. And, well done for Ben to know that, as team manager, you need to make these different decisions. He did replace himself towards the end of last year with Franchik. Franchik did come up with a good result. I think he got 7th in his first race to the team again, which was good. But then they didn't really set the world alight either. They showed more glimpses at the end of the season, but were outscored by people like Mad Cape and stuff towards the end of the year. In theory, the drivers are good. Whether or not they're as good as some of the others on the grid, because, like I said, there's some really good talent coming in now, and you can't work completely on past laurels anymore. And the biggest worry to me is that the team obviously didn't quite work last year, didn't really get the right level. They've not massively changed anything. The drivers that are there were already there last year. It either was test driver in Franchik's time or Florian was the race driver. So it's one of those things. If you do the same thing again and again, why would you expect a different result potentially? So it's difficult, but I think the team is backed heavily. They've picked a good engine. Why not? They're going for it. The drivers themselves have got the talent to move up the field. I just think their ambitions are probably higher than the level they can be at the moment, if I'm honest, for this year. But if you come last year, moving up at all has got to be a help, hasn't it?
I was about to say, anything is an improvement compared to last year. But for that to happen, we've got to have Florian and David firing on all cylinders, I think. And we know they can be quick. We've seen it before. We've seen Florian right up there battling for race wins. We've seen David Franchik right up at the top end of the points as well. So there's no real excuse, to be honest. So I agree with your point, Mike, as to what are they expecting from this year if not much has changed in the background. And I think, again, it's another one of these teams where this is a critical year. to make sure they can stay on the Super League grid, they've got to show that they can step up. And I see the lack of change. There's a few doubts in my mind, I think.
Well, the definition of madness is to do the same thing over and over and different results.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not wishing this on Street Fighter, but it feels that sometimes they're just trying the same formula that clearly hasn't worked until now. They've got some incredibly talented drivers. I've worked with Florian for so many years, and he's a genuinely quick driver. David Frančić as well has shown that he's got the talent. So there's something else in the team that is not necessarily working. They need to address this, because with the investment they had, with the hype they came in, they're struggling, and they were one of the biggest disappointments of last year. So they really need to do something, and need to do something really quick.
One factor we have learnt as well is that unfortunately David Frančić is a little unwell at the moment, so we wish him all the best, and we'll probably miss at least round 1, if not round 2 as well. And they have got a replacement for that, but we don't know who that is yet. So you might know by the time this is out, but we currently don't know. There's a whole load of factors with that, particularly when it's always a replacement at the start of the year. If they do really well, does Frančić take the seat back? Does he not? There's a whole load of things going in that. We'll wait and see. Hopefully more will come out within the next week. But we wish Red Bull Street Fighter better than last year. Then we come on to the new teams. So 3 new teams, varying levels of experience, but they're all quite experienced this year. Actually, we haven't got any sort of huge surprises. Scuderi Brasilia, let's move on to them first. Let's be honest, absolutely dominated Super Cup last year. Record-breaking, was it 1,200 points? I'm not 1,200. I'm not even messing. It was like, I think the second place team could have doubled theirs and still not won the title. So there's a huge gap there. So it's about the drivers deserve to be in this league. They were obviously out, way above the Super Cup last year. And they've retained those drivers. So Super Cup champion Stefan Rowe and Maciej Majek also come through. I've not seen in a new team with such an exciting lineup in the Super League, if I'm honest, as a brand new team and experience of the league. Like, it's not like we're drafting in 2 top-level drivers from elsewhere. These guys know this league as well and have done one-off drives in Super League. So it's run by David Junt, who arguably was the most reliable test driver, I think, over the past 5 years of any team. Kind of all sort of sits together going, well, how good can they be? Really, I'm imagining them up in the top half of the table, just on the back of that. I mean, it's a bold move, but we've seen two new teams last year finishing in the top 4, so why not?
I totally agree. I think we're going to see another epic evolution case from last year here with Scuderi Brasilia. This is such a strong team. I mean, well, Super Cup last year speaks for itself. Utter domination of all the other teams in terms of points, in terms of wins, in terms of podiums, in terms of fast laps, you name it, they dominated. That does bring with them some expectation moving up with the same lineup, and it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because if they don't perform as well in Super League, then there's probably going to be a few questions asked, given we know how quick these guys are. So as long as they can, having David Junt as the team manager will really help with things like research and managing of the team. He's been around the block in Super League. He knows everything there is as to how the team should run. So I don't think they're going to be lacking as much on the experience side compared to other new teams. So, I definitely think we can see, a top 5 from Scuderi Brasilia, possibly, if everything comes together, a title challenge.
I agree. David Junt is the best man to be in charge of a debutant team. He's done it all before. He knows how the development system works. He's been in charge of development in the past in the Super League, and he's got 2 incredible drivers that absolutely demonstrated last year that they're brilliant talent and they can win races left, right, and center. I think the only problem for Basilea would be the problem that every other debutant team have. Compared to some of the more established ones, they will come at a time in which they run out of points quicker, they run out of cash quicker, they won't be able to make as much investment in those areas as some of the more established teams. But that is not necessarily a problem at this stage for the team. They are not in to win the championship straight away. Nobody's expecting them to as a new team in Super League, and they can just concentrate on making inroads into the midfield. And if they manage to beat established teams and finish in the top half of the league, that's mission accomplished for me, and I would be very, very surprised if they achieve that.
I'd say there's two other little bits I want to add to that. I don't often talk about the test drivers that much, but one that did get me is Long Cares Makers. For those of you who have been around the block for a while, might remember that name. Race winning back on was it Rfactor 1 or even GP4 days back then? Well, I'm not quite sure what we were on.
It was GP4.
GP4. I mean, that's how long ago we're talking when this guy was around.
Multiple race winner.
Very experienced. In fact, got my team's very first win under VBM way back. I want to say about 2007, something like that. So, very fond memories there. This team almost reminds me of what it would have been like if Walk had got promoted and moved up.
Yes.
How would they have done? This is what I think this would have been like. Yeah. So, interesting. Another new team that's come on in, who came second in the Super Cup last year and arguably been around the block for quite a while. Most of you may know them as a Formula Challenge team from if you follow the league at all over the past 6 years. But they haven't. They've done the Super Cup. They've moved on forwards. They did very well and they moved forward. So this is WTF1, not to be confused with our title sponsor, which probably will be confused by in a minute when I speak about them. But English team, really, they got overshadowed a little bit last year by Scuderia Brasilia, but nonetheless still did a very good job. They actually ended up losing an awful lot of drivers to the Super League. They seem to be supplying drivers to the Super League. So Yannick Bott came from them, for example. But they have brought in Tobias Olsen, drove Madcape last year and things. So he's a good guy. We know that he can have speed. He can do. I hope he does the whole season. The worrying factor is they haven't announced second driver yet, which is always a worry at this stage because normally the reason they haven't done it is because they haven't actually got one yet, not because they're hiding it. I hope it's the second one. I hope they're just going to pull out, Van Buren or whatever it might be. But my gut instinct is maybe not. But as a new team, they don't need to set the world alight. Like you say, it just needs two solid drivers scoring points. But I'm slightly worried for them, a bit along the lines of Missouri and stuff. I think potentially could struggle. Depends on that second driver. It's very hard if you don't know the full lineup to really quantify it. So, and that basis, I don't think they're quite ready for the season. So I'd say they're going to struggle.
Firstly, I want to say it's so great to see WTF. I see. I've done it now.
Yeah,
there you go.
It wasn't me.
YTF1. Let's get it right. So great to see their efforts rewarded over so many years. I think it was 2013 they came into Formula Challenge, and they are the success story of this career ladder system we have. GPVWC working all the way from the bottom all the way back up to the top. So yeah, great to see that effort being rewarded for promotion to Super League. Then we have to start worrying about the fact they don't have a second driver. I agree with you, Mike. It's tough to predict where they're going to come this season because we don't know the full details of the lineup. But equally, as you say, just getting two drivers, getting solid, reliable finishes, and just making sure they have a car to every Grand Prix alone, that is, that's a success point for a new team in Super League. Just to make sure the consistency is there, the reliability of finishing and turning up is there. And then that's something they can build on for Season 2, I think. So as long as they can, get two solid, reliable drivers, I think they should be all right.
I think it's the issue for the team will be having to keep it realistic. Is the first year they probably won't have the same availability of top level drivers that Basilea would have, so they just have to do their homework and try not to bite more than they can chew. it's important they establish themselves. It's important they don't spend too much. It's important that they save some points for next season, and just aim to have a consistent, solid season. Possibly finding the basis in terms of drivers, in terms of structures to build on for next season. If they do that, it's a job well done for the team, and they could be satisfied.
Fingers crossed for them. I'm excited to see how that second drive is going to be. I hope we don't just find out literally on the grid of round one, but we'll see. Maybe they have guest drive every time. You know what I mean? We're going to think for Matt. If you want to drive, talk to Matt, maybe. Who knows? Last but not least, or maybe least, we'll see. Green Stripes Racing have returned to the Super League. They have been in the Super League before. They dropped down at the end of 2017, did 2018 in the Super Cup, and have come back up again into Super League. So it kind of shows that ladder system does work. Hopefully a year down in the Super Cup will have reinvigorated them moving forward, because if I'm honest, 2017 was a dismal year in Super League for them. I think it's a record low point score. But hopefully they won't go to that point. The interesting factor, I suppose, in their off-season, not only the fact that they came up to Super League, was the very close relationship with Red Bull Street Fighter. Announcing both cars together is an interesting move. Actually, not announcing your own car on your own social media is a very interesting move. But sponsored by Red Bull all over the car as well. So obviously a new era of Green Stripes Racing. The driver lineup as well shows that link with Street Fighter as well with both their drivers. So Alex Cooper jumps in that seat, experienced driver from the now defunct Nordsjøen, and the academy driver of George Sutton also jumps in, who drove at the start of the year for Mad Cape before being replaced. Let's leave it at that. Full stop. So it's can the German team really move back forwards? They were very good back in like the 2012 sort of era. That's so long ago now, and the league has changed so much. Red Bull backing, does that bring pressure as well? There's also the question mark of what happens if Green Stripes Racing starts beating Red Bull Street Fighter. How embarrassing is that? It's or not. So I don't know what that cooperation is. As far as I'm aware, it's sponsorship. The fact they've got two drivers from their academy suggests slightly more, and the launch. But who am I to say? Oh no, that's right. I am to say this is a Street Fighter second team. So Green Stripes Racing, obviously with Red Bull all over it, but nonetheless, it doesn't mean they're not going to be any good. So we've got a very experienced driver in Cooper. Sutton, to me, is a big question mark. But somebody obviously sees something in his driving at that level. Maybe a year and a bit of time away and driving at lowest levels has improved him. And hopefully so. He was thrown in a bit at the deep end at the start of last year. So hopefully he can come forwards with that as well. With Cooper there as a sort of the old head of the team, as it were. That's as a new team to get someone like Cooper in is a great coup, really. So kudos to them. I still think Green Stripes are going to struggle this year, but we'll see, I suppose.
I agree. I think it is going to be quite a tough year for Green Stripes. They've certainly have made no secret that they are, collaborating pretty closely with Street Fighter, and that's evident to see, just looking at the liveries and the launch itself. That comes with its pluses and minuses. The positive is it's giving Street Fighter, a platform on which they can get their young talent into Super League and give them that experience, and then maybe look towards the future and get them to move up these drivers up to the top team in Red Bull Street Fighter. There's obviously the downside of if Green Stripes start beating Street Fighter, then what happens there, and that looks pretty embarrassing if that happens. Cooper, he's a well-known quantity. Plenty of talent there. He's, shown pace before, plenty of wins, plenty of points. George Sutton, bit of a question mark. Hopefully he can do a bit better than when he was in Super League last time. And if he does, then who knows? Maybe, Green Stripes won't be last, hopefully. That would be nice to see. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting season for them.
I think a big key of that would be Cooper. we've seen all he can produce in the past. He's obviously a race winner. He's had the best of some of the best drivers that ever competed in the Super League. But then it comes on the back of a very, very difficult year with Nordsjøen. In a year in which he couldn't find a consistency, couldn't find a feeling with the car. So depending on which Cooper turns up and which Cooper gets the right feeling with the car, it could be what makes or breaks Green Stripes here. George Sutton obviously is a very young driver. He hasn't got a lot of experience at this level, and he needs a teammate that can sort of help him and guide him through. So there will be a lot asked of Alex, and the teams will depend a lot. They'll need to be sensible with the choices when it comes to especially development. We know in the past they've been a bit inconsistent with that, but they've got experience. They know that they've paid price for mistakes in the past. So hopefully they'll have learned from that, and they will be able to do a bit better this time around.
Must be on that sort of thing about being a new team and such. Cooper is an expensive asset to have into that team. It's one of the most expensive drivers on the grid, actually, when you start looking at his salary. So, it's a bold choice, and hopefully it pays off. That is your 15 teams. That seems quite a lot, doesn't it, this year? But now we've got the interesting factor now. So I don't know why we did this to ourselves, to be fair. I blame the overcut in that we decided that we would try and predict the championship standings, mainly because Lee and Ben did it. And we want to see if we can do better than them. So we've a bit of inter-simnews.tv rivalry going on. So we're going to sort of run through very quickly, I suppose, because we've sort of told you our thoughts already on each team, so why we think they're going to end up where they end up. As the graphic suggests, we'll start with Ben, shall we? What are we thinking?
So I've got ACR to reclaim their team's title at the top there. Closely challenged by Evolution and Edge, though. I think that's going to be a really close battle for second. As I've mentioned earlier, I think those are two very strong teams there. I've then got Scrutineer Basilia in at 4. I think they are going to do a epic evolution of 2018 and be that really strong new team coming in. I then think it's going to be sort of a close battle between 5th, 6th, and 7th with Hawkeye, Mad Cape, and Epic there. It's quite hard to predict this midfield. I think it's going to be really tight this year. Equally, I've got Red Archer in at 8. Adonis I've got in a bit lower. My only worry there is, are both drivers going to stay the season? If they do, then they'll probably be high. If they don't, then I can see them more around that sort of lower top 10 region. Then Flag to Flag, Majuric, and then Street Fighter in at 12. Again, I think they're all looking for just consistency this year and improvements on last year. So I think that's sort of realistic aims. And then 13th for Storm, because we don't know much about them. 14th for WTF1. Hopefully that would improve if we do their final driver. And then last, but most certainly not least, Green Stripes in 15th.
That seems fair enough. I mean, when we put this together, we weren't actually a million miles off each other.
No.
Not massive. There's a few exceptions which we'll go through, but so I'll quickly run through mine as well. I've been quite a ballsy move, and I had to put myself as winning it.
Bias.
I know, but if I don't, then yeah. So yeah, I think we will. I think Edge and Evolution, I think actually sit exactly where they sat last year. Very close, but nonetheless, I think it'll all be there. Then, like you said, the midfield pack. I think some of the teams that really look like they've impressed on paper to me. Mad Cape, Basilia, and Adonis all, I think, have improved massively, and you could put them in the order of those three realistically. Epic, again, are good, but I think those three have probably overtaken them, in my opinion. So that's what I think that is. Hawkeye, again, stuck with the lineup, but I think will be there or thereabouts. But unfortunately, because others have improved, I think they end up dropping to 8th. Same with Red Archer as well, though. Again, Red Archer and Storm I've sort of put in there as 9th and 10th, but they could be miles up there. They're just such an unknown quantity, so I've sort of given them slight benefit of the doubt because I don't know much about them, whereas some of the teams below I do know about, and I think they'll be struggling. Street Fighter have moved up, albeit not that far, because not a lot's changed, but I think there's teams worse off than them. Missouri I do worry about, as I said, Flag to Flag, it's one of the weaker lineups on the grid. Green Stripes being a new team, and again, one of the weaker lineups, and WTF1 I have put down there because I don't know the lineup. Whereas Storm and Red Archer, we don't know a lot about the drivers. At least we know they exist. So that's a big factor to me. But yeah, I think as a whole, like you said, I think it's sort of split into a few groups. I think there's the top few, a massive middle portion of teams that could end up anywhere from 4th all the way down to about 10th or 11th. And then probably the bottom few that are going to struggle. It's kind of where we're looking at it. Will, anything different you want to add?
For me, the midfield will be the biggest was the biggest difficulty in trying to predict, because I think it's going to be a massive scrap as well. But I give it a good shot. At the top, obviously, I still put ACR. I think it'll be close. I think they'll be very hard pushed. I mean, they were close last year. I think it'll be even closer this year. Put Edge second, but in all honesty, those teams could easily be swapped around, and I wouldn't be overly surprised. I still think that ACR have got 2 incredibly talented drivers, and if they find the way to make them work together and not try to compete against each other and take points off each other, I think they would have the edge over Edge. Sorry, the pun not intended.
Oh, you've been saving that for the show, haven't you?
I've put Adonis in third. I'm as I said earlier, I think that they've got an incredible lineup, and if they get the engine right, they got they should be in contention for the title. Maybe not this season directly, but definitely they'll be there or thereabout. Evolution in fourth. I think they're a strong team. They were a strong team in the debut season, and they will be a strong team now that they've got a bit more experience and the backing that the second season brings. Basile in fifth as well for me. I think the lineup is incredible. I think they got a good management, and they should be there ahead of the midfield. Midfield again, any of these positions could be swapped around because they're going to be close. But I put Epic in sixth. Mad Cape making some advances in seventh, just ahead of Hawkeye. Put Flag to Flag in ninth, just ahead of Red Archer, mostly because I hope that won't be the case, but Red Archer in the last few years haven't been the most solid outfit, so they may pay some price. I've given a big vote of confidence in YTF1. Put them in 11th. I think if they stick to the game plan, if they don't try anything too bizarre and just work hard, they could be ahead of the lower rungs. And then 12th to 15th has really been those that I expect to struggle. Missouri, again, I think they're not too bad, but they haven't got anything that seems like it's able to give them like the spark to get ahead of the other teams in midfield. I've seen more like at the bottom of the midfield rather than front runners of the backmarkers. And I got Storm in 13th, mostly owing to the untested lineup and the management issues. And I got like Street Fighter in 14th and Green Stripes Racing in 15th, which doesn't probably say a lot about the trust I've got in the work they're doing. I hope to be proven wrong because they're both two very likable outfits, and we all wish them to do well. But as things stand at the moment, I haven't got the biggest trust in what they will be able to achieve. But then again, it's the onus is on them to prove us wrong.
Well, absolutely. I think some interesting bits there. There's quite a few we sort of are familiar with, really. Like we sort of agree on there or thereabouts most of the guys. There's a few exceptions, I'll admit. I think the biggest sort of difference, I think, is Adonis, realistically. But it just shows that it's not as clear cut as people make out, is it? Really, the Super League could go anyway. It could literally end up the opposite to what we put. It really could, and no doubt you want to spark up in the comments. You're more than welcome. Do you know better than us? Put your predictions as well. Let us know what you think. Be nice, but tell us. Please be kind. It's episode 1 of this year. It's a new year, new start. Come on. So we've got so much going on with that. I mean, I'm excited to see where everybody can possibly end up. There's so much happening. All of it will be caught here on simnews.tv for GPVWC. And you'll also be able to catch it all. All the races will be live broadcast via YouTube. You can catch it on this channel on GPV here. You can also catch it on the WTF1 Facebook. Thank you to our sponsors there. If you like what you're seeing, these sort of shows, this sort of thing, please get involved. There's lots of stuff we can do. If you're liking this sort of stuff, this is how these sort of shows started. Get on the Discord, have a chat with us. I'm sure we can sort something out. If you don't really want to get actively involved but still want to be part of the community, you can join our Patreon. We've got a Patreon community on the screen now as well. Make sure you join along. You can get involved. You can pick shows that we're going to do. Shout out to our member of the month, Chris Shepherd. Thank you very much. Come along and chat away with each of us. If you have a webcam and you would like to be involved, Will, of webcam, then please do get in touch. We are having guest people jumping on this show throughout the season. So, if you're in any way knowledgeable or even just opinionated, we might want to have you on. Come and have a chat.
That's
I'm
dangerous.
sure that I know I may have opened a can of worms there. Just oh my goodness, I need to change my email. So awful lot going on. Make sure, of course. So we're if you're watching this as we've launched this, well done to you. Thank you very much for joining us. The race is this time next week. We've got the Super League race there. There's a lot of action before that, of course. Make sure you're following on gpvwc.com or just subscribe to this channel. Link below. Hit that bell notification as well, and you'll get told every time we're live and every time that a race is happening, so you don't miss any of the action at all at this fantastic series. Even the lower series are the guys that are feeding into this one, so you want to pick up the future Super League champions, that's the place to look at, and there's some incredible racing down there as well. Obviously, we're on social media everywhere. That's all on the screen now, so make sure you like, follow, subscribe, whatever it may be. Of course, we've got loads of that's including GPVWC. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining in. I know this has dragged on a little bit, but we are quite opinionated, and there's a lot of teams, a lot of action. I want to thank everybody for joining this. Ben, thank you very much for coming on once again.
Thank you as
I know
ever.
you've been doing this now for years. So thank you. Thank you, Will, for making a very rare appearance in the media.
My pleasure.
It's not like it's your job. But no, thank you for coming on. It's interesting to have you on, particularly not as a team owner now. So you haven't got the bias that I have. So that's always useful. So
I can only speak the truth.
Fair enough. So great to have everyone on. Make sure you're getting involved this year in some form or another. You will be missing out if you haven't. If you made it this far, though, in the show and you're watching this part, I'm sure you're already involved. So welcome, hi, and we'll speak to you very soon. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Say goodbye, chaps.
See ya.
Goodbye.
See you all.